Alright, what's up guys? Today we got some notes to do, so make sure you got your notebooks before you get started. Pencil, because you'll be writing in those notebooks. But then, first thing that I want you guys to do before we get started with today's notes is when you're following along with me, you need to write on your desk. You can either choose one of these whiteboards, you can write on your desk, but then you also need an eraser and a marker. Okay, make sure you pause the video now. Go get those things. Okay, that's the first thing that you need to do. Alright, so now what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and do some examples of dividing together. So we're going to be dividing together on the desk. So let's go ahead and give this a try. So dividing, it's pretty simple. You just start with something like 24 divided by 3. Now if you're like me and you know your times tables, then right off the bat you know that that's 8. But let's say you plug it in the calculator. You do 24 divided by 3, it crunches out 8 for you again. But what's really happening? Well, what's happening, and this is going to be important for today, is that when we have 24 divided by 3, really what we're doing is we're splitting 24 up into its factors. We're saying that 24 is really 3 times 8, and then we're dividing that by 3. Then what you're doing is you're saying, okay, we're going to take this factor right here, 3 over 3, those cancel, and what we get as a result is 8. Now I know this is a long way of doing what we normally do in our heads or in our calculator, but it's going to become important when we do it with polynomials. So let's do another example. So let's say we had 12 divided by 2. Well, 12 is just 2 times 6. And so then I have a 2 divided by a 2. Those will cancel, and what's left? 6. Okay? So then from there, one last kind of trivial example, but I just want to make sure that everybody gets it. We have negative 2 divided by negative 2. Well, negative 2 divided by negative 2, whenever you have something divided by itself, they're both going to cancel, and we get 1. Okay, it's not 0, it's 1. Okay, and that's where we're going to start. Now let's look at an example with a monomial. So it's not just numbers now, let's throw in some more complicated aspects. Let's do 6x divided by 3. Well, 6x divided by 3. Well, 6x can break up into 3 times 2x. So if I have a 3 and a 3, what's left? 2x. So 6x divided by 3 is 2x. Okay, let's do another example. I've got 6x squared divided by 3x. Okay, now 6x squared is really 6, not 6. It's really 3 times 2 times x, because x squared means that we're multiplying two x's together. Now right here on the bottom, it's 3 times x. So right here, I've got a 3 on top and a 3 on bottom, so those cancel. I've got an x on top and an x on bottom, so those cancel. What's left? 2x. So we get the same thing. So when we're doing monomials, we can split them up into our factors, cancel out what's the same on the top and the bottom, and then write out what's left right here. Now before we get into our formal notes in our notebook, let's do one more example. This time, let's do binomial divided by a monomial. So this time we've got 6x plus 3 divided by 3. So 6x plus 3, what we're looking for here is we want to find what's the GCF, what's the greatest common factor, what's the biggest number that they can both be divided by. So we're going to go equal to, actually before we even do that, let's factor 6x plus 3 using the box. So 6x and then plus 3 right there. So the biggest number that both of them can be divided by is 3. So I'll put a 3 right here. Now, 3 times 2x equals 6x. And 3 times a positive 1 would give me a positive 3. So the top factored would look like this. We've got 3 times 2x plus 1. Those are my factors. 3 from here, and then 2x plus 1 is 2x plus 1. So that's factoring out the top. Now here's the bottom is 3. So now I've got a 3 that cancels with a 3, and then lo and behold, what's left? 2x plus 1. Okay, so 6x plus 3 divided by 3 really ended up being 2x plus 1. Now, here's another example, a little weirder. Okay, let's make some room here. I've got 6x plus 3 again, and then this time I've got 3x on the bottom. So let's see what happens here. So we know that 6x plus 3 factors into 3 times 2x plus 1 because that's what was up here. So we've got 3 times 2x plus 1, okay, because that's the same thing as the other one. And then what's over that is really 3 times x. So now we can only cancel things that are exactly the same. So if a 3's here, we can cancel those. But then if I look, 2x plus 1 is a factor, right? We got to keep that together. Okay, that's all one thing. Now I can't just go ahead and cancel an x with an x because this x is different than 2x plus 1. So they can't cancel. They're not identical. So what we say is in our final answer, 2x plus 1, and then we leave x like this on the bottom. They didn't cancel, so it just stays just like this. Okay, we can only cancel identical things. All right, and we'll formalize that in some notes in our notebook in just a second. All right, now let's put away our marker and our eraser and our board if we're using those. Let's put those aside for a second because now let's take some formal notes. So here on page, it should be page 41, but whatever your next page is, it's steps to divide. Okay, so steps to divide is what we're going to call this one. And those steps, there's 4 of them. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, those are my 4 steps. And then after that, we're going to do 2 examples. So I'm going to have example, I'm going to go example 1, and then I'll just split it right down the middle. And then I've got example 2. So I've got 2 spaces for examples here. All right, so that's what that looks like. And so let's write out the steps to factoring. So first of all, factoring, the first step, the steps to dividing. Okay, the first step is to factor the top. And what I mean by top, okay, top right here, what I'm talking about is the top of the fraction. So really this is the numerator. Okay, so factor the top. Okay, that's the first step. The second step, we're going to factor the bottom. And again, what I mean by bottom now is this is the bottom of the fraction, or the denominator. Okay, this one is the denominator. Okay, and this step, the factoring the bottom part, doesn't happen too often. So I'm going to say if needed in parentheses here. Because sometimes we could skip steps 2 because it's already factored. Step 3, we're going to cancel identical. We're going to cancel identical factors. Okay, key word here is identical. They got to look exactly the same. Okay, and then lastly, we just clean it up. We simplify. Simplify is our last step. So now let's jump into our examples. Our first example is this. We've got x squared plus 5x plus 6 being divided by x plus 3. Okay. So first of all, this doesn't even look like a fraction, right? We're just saying this divided by this. So let's make it look right first. Let's do that first. So I've got x squared plus 5x plus 6 all divided by x plus 3. Okay, and I'll leave the parentheses around that, and you'll see why in a little bit. Okay, so step 1. We're supposed to factor the top. So let's go and factor the top. So we've got this trinomial, so let's use the box. Okay, we'll factor the top using the box. I've got x squared, I've got 6, I've got a blank for an x and a blank for another x right there. Okay, I'll do 1 times 6 for my a times c, so that's going to be 6. I'm looking for factors of 6 that add up to, in this case, 5. So right here I've got 2 and 3. So 2 plus 3 equals 5, but 2 times 3 equals 6. So that's perfect. That's what I want. I want 5 here. So it's a 2x for one and a 3x for the other. Okay, so I've got those. And so now I can fill out the outside, x and x. Okay, and then this is going to be a 2. This one's a 3. Okay, so I factored the top. Now it looks like this. I've got x plus 3 and x plus 2. All right, so now from here, I factored the top. Now step 2 says to factor the bottom, but if I look here, x plus 3, it's already factored, so the step 2 is not needed. Okay, in this case, it's the one if needed. It's not needed in this case, so I've got x plus 3 and x plus 3. All right, step 3 is to cancel identical factors. So if I look, my factors are this. I've got x plus 3 and x plus 2 on the top, and I've got x plus 3 on the bottom. The ones that are identical are x plus 3 and x plus 3. Those cancel. Okay, so that was my step 3, is canceling out what's in common. Now my last step, okay, step 4 says simplify. So it's basically just write out what's left. Well, the x plus 3 is canceled, so I've got x plus 2 left. X plus 2, just like that. Okay, that's the idea. Now my second example over here, the last example I want us to put in here, is a little simpler. This one is just 10x plus 15 divided by 5. Okay, 10x plus 15 divided by 5. So my step 1, again, we're going to factor the top. But this time it's just a binomial. Okay, it's not a trinomial, so our box can be a little bit simpler. We can just make a 1 by 2 box here, because I've got a 10x and a positive 15. So those guys are going to go right there and right there. Now, to factor this, I want to find out what they have in common. So if I look, I've got a 10x and a 15. What can they both be divided by? Well, they're both divisible by 5. So it's almost like I'm just taking out a GCF here. I've got 5. Okay, 5 times what makes 10x? Well, 5 times 2x makes 10x. And then 5 times a positive 3 would give me a 15. So 5 times 3 equals 15. So factoring the top, I end up with 5, right? 5 here, it's one of the factors. The other factor is going to be my 2x plus 3, just like that. Okay. Step 2, again, it's a 5 on the bottom. So factoring the bottom, nothing really to do. Again, it's not really needed. Okay, so I'll just write my 5 on the bottom. It's already factored, technically. Okay, so step 3 is we're canceling out. Step 3 is where we cancel identical factors. I see a 5 over a 5. Okay, I've got a factor of 5 and a 5. So those cancel. Step 4, simplify. Write what's left. I've got 2x plus 3. And that's what's left. And there's my answer. Okay, that's it for our notes. Lastly, let's get started on this front part, and then you guys can go ahead and do the back part by yourselves, okay? So let's do the front part together on the video. Let's see, let's zoom in a little bit here. This is a little far away. There we are. Much better. All right, let's make sure we write our names on here. Let's get our name. Let's see, I'm going to use red. Okay, so I'll get my name on there. It is now either 6th or 7th period. Okay, and then today's date. Let's see, it's the 12th. Perfect. Okay, step 1 for dividing polynomials, we factor the top. So I'm going to say factor top. Okay, step 2, factor bottom. Okay, step 3, cancel. Step 4, simplify. Just abbreviating a little bit. We just wrote those in our notes. Okay, so let's take a look at our examples now. I've got x squared plus 5x plus 6 divided by 3, x plus 3. So we'll do our step 1 is factoring the top. So I will factor the top. I've got x squared. Okay, I've got x squared there. And then I've got 6 that's going to go down here in this corner. And then I've got blank x and blank x. Okay, I drew that way too small. Let's get bigger. X squared, 6, blank x, and blank x. Okay, there we go. Much better. Now, 1 times 6 is 6. Okay, that's my A times C. I need to figure out what factors of 6 add up to 5. Well, 2 and 3 will do that. So I can put 2 and 3, just like that. Okay, and so then that leaves me with, let's use a different color to make this really clear. X times x makes x squared, x times 3 makes 3x, x times 2 makes 2x. So my factors for the top are x plus 3 and x plus 2. Now, step 2 says factor the bottom, but if I look at that, x plus 3, that's already factored. So I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to rewrite it. Okay, third step, we cancel. Okay, so we're going to cancel the things that are identical. So I'll look right here. I've got an x plus 3 and an x plus 3. Okay, what's left? X plus 2. What's left is x plus 2, just like that. And that's my answer. Okay, a little too zoomed in at that point, all right? So there's that one. Now let's look what happens to C in example 2. This one's a little weird. Okay. Step 1 says to factor the top. So again, we'll make a nice big box. Make a nice big box, put a 2x squared here, a 5 here. And then what we'll do is we'll leave a blank for an x and a blank for an x. So now, 2 times 5 is 10. So the factors of 10 that we want that add up to 7. That's what we're looking for. So right here, how about 2 times 5? 2 times 5 is 10, but then 2 plus 5 is 7. So those are the ones we want right there, 2 and 5. I've got 2 and 5. All right, so now it's right on the outside here. I know it's going to be x times x, because that makes x squared. But then I need to figure out where's that 2 going to go, because that needs to be a 2x squared. So I want to put it on the left side over here. Because if I do, then I can easily go 2x times 1 makes 2x. And then right here, x times 5 can make the 5x. Okay, so that's what I want to do there. So here's my factors. I factor the top. I got x plus 1 times 2x plus 5, just like that. On the bottom, it says factor the bottom for our second step. On the bottom, they're already factored. See, they're already in their factored form. I got x plus 5 and an x minus 2, so I can leave those just like that. Step 3 says cancel. But if I look, in my notes it says cancel identical factors. But if I look, none of them are identical. X plus 1, I don't see an x plus 1 down here. 2x plus 5, I don't see a 2x plus 5 down here. So none of them are identical. That's as far as we can go. We can just cancel, or I mean not cancel. We basically just factored, and that's as far as we can go. Okay, that might happen sometimes. You might end up with a factor where they don't match. So make sure you're not canceling out unless they exactly match. Okay, so now for the rest of the period, what you guys are doing is on the back. You've got 4 examples or 4 problems. Turn it in when you're done. Okay, sounds good, and hopefully you have a great Monday.